समस्त लोक सुखिनो भवन्तु।
समस्त लोका सुखिनो भवन्तु।
समस्त लोक सुखिनो भवन्तु।
समस्त लोका सुखिनो भवन्तु।
समस्त लोक सुखिनो भवन्तु।
समस्त लोका सुखिनो भवन्तु।
शांति शांति शांति।
तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्। तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्। भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्। साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
गणानां त्वा गणपतिं वातिगुं हवामहे कविं कवीनामुपमश्रवस्तमम् ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणस्पत आनः शृण्वन्नोतिभिः सेदसादनम् प्रणो देवी सरस्वती वाजेभिर्वाजिनीवती धीनामभित्रयवतु गणेशाय नमः सरस्वत्यै नमः श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ ॐ नमो भगवते रुद्राय ॐ नमस्ते रुद्रमन्यव उतोत इषवे नमः नमस्ते अस्तु धन्वने बाहुभ्यामुत ते नमः यात इष शिवतमा शिवं बभूवते धनुः शिवा शरव्याया तव तयानो रुद्रमृडया याते रुद्रशिवा तनूरघोरा पापकाशिनी तयानस्तनुभाषन्तमया गिरिशन्ताभिचाकशीः यामिषुङ्गिरिशन्तहस्ते बिभर्ष्यस्तवे शिवां गिरित्रतां कुरु माहि पुंसीः पुरुषं जगत् शिवेन वचसा त्वा गिरिशाच्चावधामसि यथा नः सर्वमिज्जगदयक्ष्मगुं सुमना असत् अद्य वोचदधिवक्ता प्रथमो दैव्योऽभिषक अहेकश्च सर्वान् जम्बयन् सर्वाश्च यातु धान्यः असौ यस्ताम्रो अरुण उत बभ्रुः सुमङ्गलः ये चेमागुं रुद्रा अभितो दिक्षुश्रुता सहस्रशो वैशागुं हेडयीमहे असव्यो वसर्पति नीलग्रीवो विलोहितः उतैनं गोपा अदृशन्नदृशन्नुदहार्यः उतैनं विश्वाभूतानि सदृष्टो मृडयातिनः नमो अस्तु नीलग्रीवाय सहस्राक्षाय मीडुषे अतो ये अस्य सत्त्वानो हन्तेभ्यो करन्नमः प्रमुञ्च धन्वनस्त्वमुभयोराग्नियोर्जा याश्च ते हस्त इषवः पराता भगवो वपा अवतत्यधनुस्त्वगुं सहस्राक्षशतेषु हे निशीर्य शल्यानां मुखा शिवो नः सुमना भव विज्यं धनुः कपर्दिनो विशल्योपानवागुम् उता अनेशन्नस्येषव आपुरस्य निषङ्गतिः याते हेतिर्मेडुष्टमहस्ते बभूवते धनुः तयास्मान् विश्वतस्त्वमयक्ष्मया परिभुजा नमस्ते अस्त्वायुधायानातताय धृष्णवे उभाभ्यामुत ते नमो बाहुभ्यां तव धन्वने परिते धन्वनो हेतिरस्मान् प्रणक्तु विश्वतः अतो य इषुदिस्तवारे अस्मन्निदेहितम् नमस्ते अस्तु भगवन् विश्वेश्वराय महादेवाय त्रयम्बकाय त्रिपुरान्तकाय त्रिकाग्निकालाय कालाग्निरुद्राय नीलकण्ठाय मृत्युञ्जयाय सर्वेश्वराय सदाशिवाय श्रीमन्महादेवाय नमः Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
गणनाथ पाहि गजानना गणनाथ पाहि गजानना गणनाथ पाहि गजानना गणनाथ पाहि गजानना पतीश्वरा दुःख भंजना ईश्वरा दुःख भंजना ईश्वरा दुःख भंजना ईश्वरा दुःख भंजना गणनाथ पाहि गजानना कैलासपते शिवनंदना दीनानाथ हरे हे निरंजना 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 सिद्धि प्रदाता शुभानना जगदीश्वर शांति निकेतना शांति निकेतना जगदीश्वर शांति निकेतना जगदीश्वर शांति निकेतना जगदीश्वर शांति निकेतना जगदीश्वर शांति निकेतना गणनाथ पाहि गजानना गणनाथ पाहि गजानना ईश्वरा दुःख भंजना कैलासपते शिवनंदना दीनानाथ हरे हे निरंजना कैलासपते शिवनंदना दीनानाथ हरे हे निरंजना सिद्धि प्रदाता शुभानना जगदीश्वर शांति निकेतना शान्तिनिकेतना जगदीश्वर शान्तिनिकेतना जगदीश्वर शान्तिनिकेतना करनाथ पाहि जानना। भक्त वत्सल तेरो नाम ओ साई, भक्त वत्सल तेरो नाम ओ साई, दुख भंजन तेरो नाम ओ साई, तुम संग बांधी प्रेम की डोरी, प्रेम की डोरी, तुम संग बांधी प्रेम की डोरी, संग बांधी प्रेम की डोरी, सुमिरन करो तेरो नाम ओ साई, सुमिरन करो तेरो नाम ओ साई, सुमिरन करो तेरो नाम, सुमिरन करो तेरो नाम, पतितो धारण भक्त परायण, पतितो धारण भक्त परायण, पतितो धारण भक्त परायण, पतितो धारण भक्त परायण, पतीश्वर साई राम, पतीश्वर साई राम, पतीश्वर साई राम, पतीश्वर साई राम, भक्त वत्सल तेरो नाम ओ साई, भक्त वत्सल तेरो नाम ओ साई, दुख भंजन तेरो नाम ओ साई, भंजन तेरा ओ साई, तुम संग बांधी प्रेम की डोरी, संग बांधी प्रेम की डोरी, सुमिरन करो तेरो नाम ओ साई, सुमिरन करो तेरो नाम ओ साई, पतितो धारण भक्त परायण, पतितो धारण भक्त परायण, पतीश्वर साई राम, पतीश्वर साई राम, पतीश्वर साई राम, पतीश्वर साई राम, भक्त वत्सल तेरो नाम ओ साई। जय 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 जगवन्दिनी मां, जगवन्दिनी मां, जय 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 जगवन्दिनी मां, जय जय जगवन्दिनी मां, जय पर परमेश्वर वासिनी जय जय जगवंदिनी आदिशक्ति पर ब्रह्म स्वरूपिणी आदिशक्ति पर ब्रह्म स्वरूपिणी
आदिशक्ति पर ब्रह्म स्वरूपिणी
जग जननी चतुर्वेद विलासिनी जग जननी चतुर्वेद विलासिनी सांब विनोदिनी माता भवानी सांब विनोदिनी माता भवानी सांब विनोदिनी माता भवानी सांब विनोदिनी माता भवानी श्री करी शंकरी मोक्ष प्रदायिनी श्री करी शंकरी मोक्ष प्रदायिनी जय 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 जगवंदिनी जय परमेश्वर वासिनी जय 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 जगवंदिनी आदिशक्ति पर ब्रह्म स्वरूपिणी जग जननी चतुर्वेद विलासिनी सांब विनोदिनी माता भवानी माता भवानी माता सांब विनोदिनी माता भवानी श्री करी शंकरी मोक्ष प्रदायिनी श्री करी शंकरी मोक्ष प्रदायिनी जय 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 जगवंदिनी
ईश्वर अल्लाह एक तुम्ही हो
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 करुणा सिंधु मुझे कृपा करो भगवान,
मुझे कृपा करो भगवान।
करुणा सागर दयाभिराम,
करुणा सागर दयाभिराम।
करुणा सागर दयाभिराम,
करुणा सागर दयाभिराम।
ईश्वर अल्लाह एक तुम्हीं हो,
ईश्वर अल्लाह एक तुम्हीं हो।
करुणा सिंधु
करुणा सिंधु
दीन जनों के जीवन सहारे,
दीन जनों के जीवन सहारे।
भक्त जनों के जीवन सहारे,
भक्त जनों के जीवन सहारे।
दया करो भगवान,
दया करो भगवान।
मुझे कृपा करो भगवान,
मुझे कृपा करो भगवान।
करुणा सागर दयाभिराम,
करुणा सागर दयाभिराम।
करुणा सागर दयाभिराम,
करुणा सागर दयाभिराम।
ईश्वर अल्लाह एक तुम्हीं हो। ओम नमः शिवाय, 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 नमो नमो, ओम नमः शिवाय, नमो नमो, ओम नमः शिवाय, नमो नमो, ओम नमः शिवाय, नमो नमो। गंगाधरा हर गौरी वरा, गंगाधरा हर गौरी वरा, गंगाधरा हर गौरी वरा, गंगाधरा हर गौरी वरा। कैलासनाथा नमो, कैलासनाथा नमो, कैलासनाथा नमो, कैलासनाथा नमो। गंगोत्रिवासा श्री साईनाथा, गंगोत्रिवासा श्री साईनाथा, गंगोत्रिवासा श्री साईनाथा, गंगोत्रिवासा श्री साईनाथा। ओम नमः शिवाय, नमो नमो, 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 ओम नमः शिवाय, 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 नमो नमो, ओम नमः शिवाय, नमो नमो। गंगाधरा हर गौरी वरा, गंगाधरा हर गौरी वरा। कैलासनाथा नमो, कैलासनाथा नमो, कैलासनाथा नमो कैलासनाथा नमो गंगोत्रीवासा श्री साईनाथा गंगोत्रीवासा श्री साईनाथा ओम नमः शिवाय नमो नमो ओम नमः शिवाय शिवाय नमो नमो ओम नमः शिवाय ओम नमः शिवाय
गोविंद कृष्ण विठ्ठला वेणुगोपाल कृष्ण विठ्ठला कृष्ण विठ्ठला वेणुगोपाल कृष्ण विठ्ठला
गोविंद कृष्ण विठ्ठला वेणुगोपाल कृष्ण विठ्ठला
पांडुरंग विठ्ठला जय पंढरीनाथ विठ्ठला पांडुरंग विठ्ठला जय पंढरीनाथ विठ्ठला गोविंद विठ्ठला गोपाल विठ्ठला
विठ्ठला गोपाल विठ्ठला
गोविंद विठ्ठला गोपाल विठ्ठला
विठ्ठला गोपाल विठ्ठला
पांडुरंग विठ्ठला पंढरीनाथ विठ्ठला पांडुरंग विठ्ठला पंढरीनाथ विठ्ठला गोविंद कृष्ण विठ्ठला वेणुगोपाल कृष्ण विठ्ठला पांडुरंग विठ्ठला जय पंढरीनाथ विठ्ठला
पांडुरंग विठ्ठला जय पंढरीनाथ विठ्ठला
गोविंद विठ्ठला गोपाल विठ्ठला
विठ्ठला गोपाल विठ्ठला
पांडुरंग विठ्ठला पंढरीनाथ विठ्ठला
विठ्ठला पंढरीनाथ विठ्ठला
पांडुरंग विठ्ठला पंढरीनाथ विठ्ठला
विठ्ठला पंढरीनाथ विठ्ठला
विठ्ठल विठ्ठल पांडुरंगा
विठ्ठल पांडुरंगा
विठ्ठल विठ्ठल पांडुरंगा
विठ्ठल पांडुरंगा
विठ्ठल विठ्ठल पांडुरंगा
विठ्ठल विठ्ठल पांडुरंगा
विठ्ठल विठ्ठल पांडुरंगा
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 विठ्ठल पांडुरंगा
गोविंद कृष्ण विठ्ठला वेणु वेणुगोपाल कृष्ण विठला
हे दीन दयालु साई राम हे दीन दयालु साई राम परम कृपालु साई राम परम कृपालु साई राम परम कृपालु साई पतित पावन साई राम पतित पावन साई राम हे पतित पावन साई राम पतित पावन साई राम भक्त वत्सल साई राम भक्त वत्सल साई राम भक्त वत्सल साई राम कृपालु साई राम परम कृपालु साई राम साई राम 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 साई राम 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 हे पतित पावन साई राम पतित पावन साई राम हे पतित पावन साई राम पतित पावन साई राम भक्त वत्सल साई राम वत्सल साई राम साई राम 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 हे दीन दयालु साई राम
जय नारायण जय हरिओ
जय नारायण जय हरिओ
जय नारायण जय हरिओ
जय नारायण जय हरिओ
साई नारायण जय हरिओ
साई नारायण जय हरिओ
साई नारायण जय हरिओ
साई नारायण जय हरिओ
जय नारायण जय हरिओ
जय नारायण जय हरिओ
ब्रह्म शिवार्चित जय हरिओ पाप विनाशक जय हरि
पाप विनाशक जय हरि
पाप विनाशक जय हरि
पाप विनाशक जय हरि
जय हरि जय हरि जय हरि
पाप विनाशक जय हरि
जय हरि जय हरि
जय हरि जय हरि
जय हरि जय हरि
जय हरि
जय नारायण जय हरि
साईश्वरी अम्ब जगदीश्वरी
साईश्वरी अम्ब जगदीश्वरी
साईश्वरी अम्ब जगदीश्वरी
साईश्वरी अम्ब जगदीश्वरी
कल्याणी कांचीपुरी कामाक्षी
कल्याणी कांचीपुरी कामाक्षी
कल्याणी कांचीपुरी कामाक्षी
कल्याणी कांचीपुरी कामाक्षी
साईश्वरी अम्ब जगदीश्वरी
साईश्वरी अम्ब जगदीश्वरी
परमेश्वरी अम्ब परमेश्वरी
परमेश्वरी अम्ब परमेश्वरी
परमेश्वरी अम्ब परमेश्वरी
परमेश्वरी अम्ब परमेश्वरी
मातंगी मधुरापुरी मीनाक्षी
मातंगी मधुरापुरी मीनाक्षी
मातंगी मधुरापुरी मीनाक्षी
मातंगी मधुरापुरी मीनाक्षी
साईश्वरी अम्ब जगदीश्वरी
साईश्वरी अम्ब जगदीश्वरी
कल्याणी कांचीपुरी कामाक्षी
कल्याणी कांचीपुरी कामाक्षी
साईश्वरी अम्ब जगदीश्वरी
साईश्वरी अम्ब जगदीश्वरी
परमेश्वरी अम्ब परमेश्वरी
परमेश्वरी अम्ब परमेश्वरी
मातंगी मधुरापुरी मीनाक्षी
मातंगी मधुरापुरी मीनाक्षी
मातंगी मधुरापुरी मीनाक्षी
मातंगी मधुरापुरी मीनाक्षी
साईश्वरी अम्ब जगदीश्वरी
धिमित धिमित धिम धिमित धिमित धिम गाते भोलाना ओम धिमित धिमित धिम धिमित धिमित धिम गाते भोलाना
धिमित धिमित धी धिमित धिमित धी नाचे भोलाना
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 ओम धिमित धिमित धिम धिमित धिमित धिम नाचे भोलाना
धिमित धिमित धी धिमित धिमित धी नाचे भोलाना
मृदंग बोले शिव 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 ओम
बोले शिव शिव शिव
मृदंग बोले शिव 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 ओम
बोले शिव शिव शिव
डमरू बोले हर 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 ओम
डमरू बोले हर हर हर
डमरू बोले हर 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 ओम
डमरू बोले हर हर हर
वीणा बोले साई राम
बोले साई राम साई राम
वीणा बोले साई राम
बोले साई राम साई राम
नाचे भोलाना नाचे भोलाना नाचे भोलाना नाचे भोलाना ओम धिमित धिमित धिम धिमित धिमित धिम नाचे भोलाना
धिमित धिमित धिम धिमित धिमित धिम नाचे भोलाना
मृदंग बोले शिव 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 ओम
बोले शिव शिव शिव
डमरू बोले हर 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 ओम
डमरू बोले हर हर हर
वीणा बोले साई राम
बोले साई राम साई राम
नाचे भोलाना
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 नाचे भोलाना नाचे भोलानाथ।
मधुबन के मोहन मुरली बजैया, मधुबन के मोहन मुरली बजैया, गिरधारी नंद कुमार कन्हैया,
गिरिधारी नंद कुमार कन्हैया आनंद धाम बलराम जी के भैया
बलराम जी के भैया
आनंद धाम बलराम जी के भैया
बलराम जी के भैया
आनंद धाम 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 बलराम जी के भैया
गिरिधारी नंद कुमार कन्हैया
गिरिधारी नंद कुमार कन्हैया
गिरिधारी नंद कुमार कन्हैया
गिरिधारी नंद कुमार कन्हैया
गोपी मनोहर रास रचैया
मनोहर रास रचैया
गोपी मनोहर रास रचैया
मनोहर रास रचैया
गिरिधारी नंद कुमार कन्हैया
गिरिधारी नंद कुमार कन्हैया
गिरिधारी नंद कुमार कन्हैया मधुबन के मोहन मुरली बजैया
मोहन मुरली बजैया
गिरिधारी नंद कुमार कन्हैया
नंद कुमार कन्हैया
आनंद धाम बलराम जी के भैया
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 गिरिधारी नंद कुमार कन्हैया
नंद कुमार कन्हैया
गोपी मनोहर रास रचैया
हर राम रचैया
गिरिधारी नंद कुमार कन्हैया
नंद कुमार कन्हैया
गिरिधारी नंद कुमार कन्हैया
नंद कुमार कन्हैया
गिरिधारी नंद कुमार कन्हैया
नंद कुमार कन्हैया
मधुबन के मोहन मुरली भजैया
शांति शांति शांति
Offering my most loving pranams at Bhagwan's lotus feet. Dear listeners, I welcome you to this week's episode of the Gita series, Try on Pilgrimage. We are in the 6th chapter, and to give you a short brief of the 6th chapter, the 6th chapter essentially is about Dhyana Yoga. It speaks about the importance of Dhyana in the path of Karma Yoga. And speaking about Dhyana, Krishna goes on to speak about the mind, the control of the mind, and that is the portion where we are. In fact, we have just completed that portion. After having completed that portion, there is a small set of doubts that Arjuna has asked, and the rest of the chapter, or at least this portion of the chapter, is going to deal with the answer that Krishna gave in response to those questions. So we'll begin, as always, with a short summary of what we covered last time. That will give us a context of what we're going to go through this week. We covered 4 verses, 37, 38, 39 and 40. And as I was just mentioning to you, Arjuna had asked a few questions, and that was why probably the Bhagavad Gita did not stop at this point, because it seems like a well-rounded text till that point in time. Krishna spoke about jnana, Krishna spoke about karma yoga to get to that jnana. For getting to that karma yoga, Krishna spoke about what are the prerequisites. One of the tools that he offered was dhyana, and it seemed pretty complete at that point in time, till Arjuna asked a very important question. Krishna made it very clear that one who has control of the mind, for such a person, yoga is very simple. And for that control or self-control, one has to use abhyasa and vairagya. Now Arjuna asks, what if one does not have the required self-control? One does not reach the goal, and it happens because of the lack of self-control. Shraddhaya upetaha. He possesses faith, means that he is convinced that the spiritual path is what one has to tread. One has made that choice in one's life. One is working towards that. So that's what he says. Shraddhaya upetaha. He possesses that faith, but he might still be an ayatihi, one who does not have self-control or who does not have adequate self-control. So in the 37th verse, Arjuna asks, what end does such a person meet? But in the very next verse, in the 38th verse, Arjuna openly places his opinion in front of Krishna in the form of a question, nevertheless, but he reveals what he is having in his own mind, because Arjuna thinks that such a person is nothing but a total loser. A loser with regards to the spiritual journey, because he has not been able to reach the goal. He is also a loser with regards to the world, because he has given it up, and for what? What has he gained in the process? So doesn't such a person get destroyed? Chinna Brahma iva, like a small cloud that is scattered asunder by the wind, is what Arjuna asks, which is in the 38th verse. In the 39th verse, after having placed these doubts before Krishna, Arjuna says, "O Krishna, only you can clear these doubts, and that is why I am asking you these questions." Why does Arjuna say that? Because what Arjuna is asking is something that spans over many lifetimes. To be able to give an answer to this question, one must have knowledge of what happens to a person beyond one lifetime, after one person has discarded the body. And such knowledge nobody else has but Krishna, because as we saw last week, Krishna had said sometime in the 2nd or 3rd chapter that we have been eternal, referring to Arjuna, is saying, you have also come many times, I have also come many times, we've been timeless, but you do not remember the various experiences that you have had in the other bodies that you have inhabited, whereas I have complete knowledge of all those lifetimes. So no one else other than Krishna is capable of answering this question that Arjuna is asking, because he's asking, I fail, the life ends, what happens to me? Don't I get destroyed in the process? Right? So that's what Arjuna is asking. Krishna's response to that is very simple and clear. He says there is certainly no ruin for such a person here or hereafter. Because Krishna asks, how can one who is engaged in good deeds ever meet with a deplorable end? So that is the simple answer that Krishna gives. In one verse he says that he kind of squashes whatever Arjuna has been saying. But in the shlokas that are going to follow is where Krishna is going to explain what he means by there is no ruin for such a person here and hereafter. What is the meaning of that very, very inspiring affirmation that Krishna gives in his reply to Arjuna. So that was the summary of the 4 verses that we covered last time. We'll go to the verses that we have for this week. We'll start with verse number 41. As always, we'll listen to it first in the voice of Brother Shyam. I'll give you a brief meaning of that, and then we'll discuss in detail what Krishna says there.
प्राप्य पुण्यकृतां लोकान् उषित्वा शाश्वती समाः शुचीनां श्रीमतां गेहे योगभ्रष्टोऽभिजायते.
Having attained the worlds of performers of pious acts, and having resided there for years or countless years, the fallen from yoga is born in the house of the pure persons who are affluent. So that is the 41st verse. As we saw, Krishna made an assertion to Arjuna that a person who has been a failure on the path of yoga, who has, say, not managed to reach the goal or who had insufficient mind control, even though he was otherwise sincere, even though he had Shraddha, as Arjuna had put it, such a person, Krishna says, will not get ruined. And also Krishna had said, he will not be ruined here or hereafter. So in this shloka and the following one, as I just mentioned, Krishna elaborates what he means by he will not get ruined here and hereafter. In what way such a person benefits? To refer to such a person, Krishna uses a very interesting phrase. He uses a term. He uses the word yoga bhrashta. The word bhrashta is a negative one actually. Probably the most common derived word that we often hear, especially in our media. If you listen to Hindi news, you would often hear this word bhrashtachar, which means corruption, right? So the word bhrashta actually has a negative connotation. A karma bhrashta is one who takes to wrong actions. So the word bhrashta technically means either fallen or decayed or has got ruined. So a yoga bhrashta is one who has slipped and fallen on the path of yoga. But here Krishna is speaking so highly of yoga bhrashta that it is not at all in any negative sense. And which of course is a very straight hint to all of us. And what is that hint? It is any day far better to be a failure on the spiritual path than to be a successful person in the worldly path. Krishna doesn't say it in as many words as I just put it, but I think that is the feeling that comes because you're talking of a yoga bhrashta, a failure on the path of yoga, but Krishna is speaking so highly of that person that to fail in this attempt is better than to be successful in the attempt that is contrary to this, that is in the pursuit of the world. So what happens to such a person after he dies unable to reach the goal in that particular lifetime where he is taken to the path of yoga? Prapya punyakritam lokan. Having attained the world of the righteous, punyakritam lokan, ushitva shashvatihi samaha, and having lived there for countless years. As we mentioned, the basis of life of Karma Yoga is to perform dharmic actions, right? Without doing good actions, without doing moral actions, you cannot speak of Karma Yoga at all. The first and foremost prerequisite is that one must be performing dharmic actions. So even if one is a yoga bhrashta, because one is not able to curtail the distractions of the mind, or is not able to completely give up selfishness and desires for the results of actions, because that is what distracts the mind, he or she nevertheless would have performed the good karmas or good actions that have to be performed for leading a good life, right? And that one will certainly benefit from, right? That's what Krishna had told even in the previous verse that we covered last week. Having done good actions, kalyana krita, I think is the word that Krishna had used in the previous previous verse, where he said, when you've done auspicious actions, how can you not benefit from them? And talking of benefits of good actions or punya krita, as Krishna is telling in this particular verse, one of the benefits that is spoken of is a place in heaven. And that is what is referred to here by Krishna as punya kritam lokan. If you do punya, you reach the punya kritam lokan, the loka or the plane of existence for those who have done meritorious actions or punyas. What is this heaven really? Right? We keep hearing about heaven, the gates to heaven and all kinds of things. We have a lot of imaginary ideas about what this heaven is. Swami has explained this a few times in his discourses. More than a place or a world, like what we, as I said, see in our movies, some fancy looking place up in the clouds, you have clouds floating all around you, you can hear the music of harp, and probably people there have wings, there is constant dance and music all the time. It's not like a place like that. Swami says, heaven is a state of mind. A good way of explaining it is to compare it to the dream state that we experience. When we sleep, based on our activities in the waking state, and some memories from the subconscious which has come from many, many lifetimes, the mind creates a dream world, right? That's what something we experience almost every night. I think almost every person has some sort of a dream or something during night, and that happens every night. So the mind creates this world, this dream world, based on all of these impressions, based on what I have seen during the day, as well as what is there in the subconscious mind. And there you either experience pleasantness or pain. And that experience lasts for a certain time, and then we wake up. Right? That's the experience of the dream that we all have. In the same manner, when the subtle body, the sukshma sharira, discards the physical body or the stula sharira, it creates a heaven or hell based on the kind of life that the person has led in that particular body, as well as the kind of life one has led in past lives. And if the actions performed in that particular birth are meritorious in nature, one experiences heaven. If one has been a karma bhrashta or has done wrong acts, one experiences hell. And just like a dream, this experience also lasts for a brief period of time, and then the sukshma sharira has to re-enter another body to begin a new lifetime. Right? That's how Vedanta describes this journey. That's what Swami has also spoken about. So as Swami would say, this heaven is like being elected to the parliament. You can go and settle. You cannot go there and settle. I've been elected once and then I just go and put my tent in the parliament. It doesn't work that way. You can stay there for 5 years and then you have to come back and probably get re-elected. Similarly, you are allowed to stay in the heaven for a brief period of time, and then you're supposed to come back, and then if you do more good actions, then you return to heaven. There is another thing about this dream. This dream is purely created by the mind when we go to sleep. And this is an experience that we all have seen, and this applies even to this Punyakritam Lokan that we are speaking about. In a dream, the sense of time is completely different. It completely goes awry. Sometimes we all would have experienced this. We have dreams in which we almost go through an entire lifetime, probably 40 years. And the dream starts with us being in school, and then, many of us have experienced that, or we have dreams that span many, many years. But when we wake up, we realize that we were asleep for barely about an hour or so, right? That dream is so real, the dream is so deep, and so much of time elapses in the dream, but in the real life when we wake up, it appears like we realize that it's been just half an hour, 1 hour, whatever it is. Because in the dream state, there is no karma, kala, karana and kartavya. As Swami would put it, there is no action, time, reason or duty. That is why what we experience in the dream seems like an endless state. Time seems to be stretching in that dream that we are experiencing. Possibly when Krishna says in this particular shloka, Shashvatihi Samaha, he is referring to this experience of timelessness. Shashvata means eternal. Shashvatihi Samaha means a time that is equivalent to eternity. So suggesting for an unmeasurable length of time or an uncountable number of years, because there is no sense of time within this loka. So when Krishna says Shashvatihi Samaha, the person goes and lives in this Punyakritam Lokan or heaven, it doesn't mean that one lives there till eternity. That experience seems like eternity. It seems like a very, very long time. But then, as I was saying, you have to, if it's a dream, you have to wake up from a dream. If it's a heaven, you will have to come out of that at some point in time. So Krishna says, Prapya Punyakritam Lokan Ushitva Shashvatihi Samaha. Having attained the worlds of the righteous and having lived there for what seems like countless years, the Yoga Bhrashta, Shuchinam Shrimatam Gehe Abhijayate. A very important, beautiful statement that Krishna makes here. Shuchinam Shrimatam Gehe Abhijayate. He or she is born in a house that is prosperous and cultured or noble. Shuchinam, that which is pure or noble, and Shrimatam means prosperous. So after having enjoyed a good time in heaven, when it is time to take another birth, this Yoga Bhrashta, whom Arjuna thought is a loser, is born in a house that is prosperous and is noble. What is the significance of this blessing or this assurance that Krishna is giving? To be born in a Shuchinam Shrimatam Gehe. The Yoga Bhrashta not only is given a good birth, because the good karmas that one has performed during that process of trying to lead a life of Karma Yoga, but the person is also given a good condition or circumstance where he or she can continue on this path of yoga that one has slipped from. This is not to say that it is impossible to become a spiritual person if you are born in a family that is poor, or you are born in a family where all other members are having a worldly bent of mind. No, that is not the case. But it is certainly easier if you do not have to worry about your everyday food and how to make ends meet, isn't it? And certainly the environment in the house, if it is encouraging towards a spiritual life, it definitely helps, isn't it not? So if I am born in a family where let's say my father drinks and smokes and gambles, even then I can grow up to be a person of values if I choose to and if I resolve to. But if my father is a person who does not have these habits and is a very noble person, then certainly my life gets a little easier and the opportunities for me to be a noble person is enhanced. right? So you are getting to start a couple of steps ahead. You're getting a good kickstarter, a booster start to this spiritual life, so that you can begin to dwell on a spiritual life, begin to explore spiritual truths without worrying too much about one, making your ends meet, and without unnecessarily spending time in transforming yourself, because you already seem to be getting good sanskaras or good habits and practices from your family. So that is the advantage that Krishna is speaking about in this particular shloka. Similarly, even a wealthy household can be an advantage to a spiritual aspirant, right? One, he or she doesn't have to worry about making ends meet, as I just mentioned. The mind space is available for higher pursuits. And when a spiritual bent of mind is coupled with wealth, it will lead to one seeing the futility of worldly wealth, and it will also lead to further good karma, isn't it? If I have money and a good heart, I will naturally be more charitable by nature. So to be born in a Shuchinam Shrimatam Gehe, a household that is pure and wealthy, presents some advantages for the Yoga Bhrashta to pick up from where one is left off in the previous birth. In the next shloka, Krishna says, if not such a life, this person may be born in another kind of family, where there are another set of similar advantages, right? So we'll listen to that. That is shloka number 42. There again, Krishna presents a few more assurances, which is very interesting. We'll listen to that, and then we will discuss about it after I give you a brief meaning for that.
अथवा योगिनामेव कुले भवति धीमताम् एतद्धि दुर्लभतरम् लोके जन्म यदीदृशम्.
Or he may be born in the family of the wise sages, though a birth like this is indeed very difficult to obtain. So that is the 42nd verse of the 6th chapter. And in this verse, Krishna presents another possibility for a person who is a Yoga Bhrashta. He is not born in a Shuchinam Shrimatam Gehe, a household that is pure and prosperous. What other options are available? We will first see what exactly Krishna says here, and then we will discuss why this is so significant. Krishna says, Athava, or Yoginam eva kule bhavati dhimatam. He is born in a kula or family of Yoginam, of yogis, dhimatam, who are wise. So Krishna is saying that such people who have failed in the path of yoga will either be born in a cultured, noble family that is affluent, or in a family of yogis. Well, he doesn't directly say, or in a family of poor yogis, but the contrast, I think, is quite obvious, that either you'll be born in pure, affluent households, or you'll be born in probably not very affluent households, or in a family of yogis. Right? What is the meaning of this? I mean, why is this contrast, and why a family of yogis probably need not necessarily be rich? I think the idea that Krishna is conveying is they are not poor because of prarabdha or destiny. They are probably not rich in the worldly wealth because they are dhimataha. They are wise. And being wise, they have chosen not to fill their life with worldly pursuits, and hence, for the worldly person, it appears like they are not rich. Right? So Krishna doesn't say that the poor yogi family, but he only says you are either born in a rich family that is noble, or you are born in a family of wise people the contrast suggesting that they are so wise that they have discovered the futility of filling their lives with worldly achievements and worldly pleasures, and hence they seem to be leading a simpler life. Right? But quickly Krishna adds, Yetat hi loke janma yat idrisham. But indeed, this sort of a birth in the world, durlabhataram, it is very difficult to obtain. Durlabhataram, it is very difficult to obtain. So being born in a family or kula of yogis is indeed a great blessing than even the one that was mentioned in the previous shloka. But then why is Krishna mentioning both together? In a certain sense, these two are comparable. Even though Krishna is saying to be born in a yogi's family or in a family of wise people is a very great blessing, the reason why Krishna is putting both these together is they are comparable for a certain reason. Because being born in a rich and noble family means you do not have to start with making ends meet and give up your mind space to such pursuits. Some good habits will be inculcated naturally because you're coming from a very noble family. And so one has a good kickstart to the spiritual quest in that particular birth. Similarly, to be born in a family that understands the ephemeral nature of wealth and does not blindly go after these pursuits and is able to see the worth of having less wealth that represents and going after the yogic pursuits, it represents a similar advantage to the person in that lifetime. Right? So that is the comparable point of being born in a rich and noble family and being born in a family of yogis and wise ones. In both, the advantage is that one is starting off on a good note in the spiritual journey. These two verses present a lot of interesting insights, right? Apart from what we've been speaking about in the context of the conversation that is happening between Krishna and Arjuna, in the context of the question that Arjuna has raised. Yes, in that sense also it's very important what Krishna is saying here. So that is the main conversation, which is the spiritual quest and the fact that the spiritual quest never goes waste, right? But apart from that, I think there are some very interesting points that one can gather from these two shlokas that in fact occurred to me when I first happened to read some of these shlokas many years ago. The first point is, wealth is not always evil. Generally, some people have this notion, and I think it's quite natural also, because of some of the experiences that we might have had in this lifetime, that we think that whoever is wealthy is a very bad person, or to be wealthy itself is a very bad thing, or that all rich people are worldly people. That is not the case, because Krishna is saying very obviously a yoga bhrashta may be born in a rich family. So affluence or prosperity cannot always be tagged or coupled with worldliness. There can be an extremely rich person who has an extremely spiritual insight or a spiritual quest in his mind. So that's a very important point that Krishna is making here. Among all the blessings that God can confer on us, wealth is probably the simplest and the easiest thing that He can give, isn't it? The whole world is His, the whole universe is His. What does it matter for Him to give a little bit of gold your way, right? Probably the wealth to make one wealthy is probably the simplest thing that you can ask of God. So maybe that is one of the reasons why you have this imagery in Sanatana Dharma where Mother Lakshmi, who represents wealth, is seen as the foremost servitor of the Lord, because it's so easy for God to confer wealth. but it is not necessarily a curse or distraction as we sometimes tend to believe. So when it is so easy for God to give, as Krishna is saying here, if you're a yoga bhrashta, if you've fallen away from the yogic path, the least I will give you is probably give you a comfortable family to be born in, right? And when we talk about Mother Lakshmi being the foremost servitor of the Lord, of course she represents all forms of wealth, not merely material or worldly. I think the indication is that those that are affluent and have the mindset to use that wealth in the service of God, that attitude becomes a blessing in itself. And being around Swami as Swami students, as having been in Prasanthi Nilayam for a few years, we tend to see many families like this who are blessed with a lot of wealth and who are so dedicated and who are so ready to spend all that wealth in Swami's service, in the service of humanity. In fact, I recall one such family that the Telugu team had the opportunity to speak to. I think this is one of the family of devotees from Amalapuram. In fact, one of the members of the family is also a Swami student who happens to be my batchmate. The thing about this family is, I think almost every other person in the family is a doctor. This boy, who I said is a Swami student, is now a doctor. His parents are doctors. His uncles and aunts are doctors. I think some of his grandparents are also doctors. So it's a family of doctors, and each one is extremely accomplished in the field of their specialization. And this is for generations. As I was saying, it's not just one generation, many generations of such successful doctors. So they are already affluent and also make a lot of money due to their professional competence of the present. What makes this family stand out is, this family has been running free medical camps as guided and directed by Swami for decades and decades and decades now. They must have spent so many tens of crores of rupees purely doing free medical camps. And when some of our friends asked them how are they able to manage such expenditure, all they had to say was, we offer whatever little we can to Swami, and it seems like Swami doesn't stop filling our coffers. The more we do, the more money comes. Swami blesses us with more and more. In fact, even in the history of Bharat, we will find so many such people who are noble and affluent, so many such families. They become patrons of art, patrons of spiritual study, right? So that is one of the clarifications I feel this verse presents. Do not always associate wealth with worldliness. Even a spiritual person is sometimes given a wealthy birth so that one does not have to worry about merely caring for this body, right? So that one can spend one's time and one's mind in higher quests. The second is, I think, all of us, when the time comes to have children, when we want to have children, we always wish for having noble children, right? Especially in Sai devotees' families, we always want that when the child is born, does the child very naturally take to Swami? Does the child start enjoying bhajans? We have a lot of children from a very young age, they start chanting Vedas or stotrams, and we are very delighted. And we all want children like that. We want children who are noble and who are very spiritual. Such children are not randomly born in a family. I think that is one thing that is very clearly stated through these two verses. Unless and until we as a family present that opportunity for spiritual progress, such souls will not be born in our homes, isn't it? We are looking for such souls who have already progressed on the spiritual path and who are here to continue on their journey. So if we want such children to be born in our family, then we must ensure that this family is a suitable place for such a soul. And that happens only if, of course, It does not mean that make yourself affluent because such children are born in affluent families, but make yourself noble so that whatever money or whatever affluence one has, it is put into right use, right? Of course, there are always exceptions, and these exceptions, I should say, are beyond our comprehension. The best example I can think of at the top of my mind is someone like Prahalada being born to Hiranyakashipu, right? I think those are all exceptions, and there are some backstories for that. Maybe these are all cases where the individual soul chooses a highly challenging circumstance so that one can grow spiritually faster and reach greater heights. But for most parts, if you want noble children, you must present a noble household for them to be born and for them to take off from where they must have left off in their previous lives. And as we saw, wealth is an advantage, but the house need not be wealthy. That's why Krishna presents both. He might be born in a wealthy household, or he might be born in a household of yogis and wise ones. So what we need to do if we want children who are noble is present a noble environment for such children. So in summary, Krishna says, don't have the fear of failing in the path of yoga, because even if that happens, because of the good actions that you would have performed in the process of being in the path of yoga, you will find a place in the heaven meant for such good actions. And thereafter, when the time comes for the next birth to be taken, you will be born in a Shuchinam Shrimatam Gehe, in a pure and affluent family, or Yoginam Eva Kule Bhavati Dhimatam, born in a family of yogis and wise ones. Though that is a more difficult birth to attain, to be born in such a family. So in the next few shlokas, Krishna continues to explain what happens to the yoga bhrashta, having been born in such a family as described in these two verses. So we'll go to the next one, which is the 43rd verse, and let's see what Krishna says there.
Tatra tam buddhi samyogam labhate paurvadehikam yatate cha tato bhuyaha samsiddhau kuru nandana.
Then the experience acquired in his former life will revive, and with its help he will strive for perfection more eagerly than before. So that's the 43rd verse of the 6th chapter. One thing that we must remember is, if you are not born in families that are described above, it does not mean that you cannot take to the path of yoga and become a spiritual person. A seeker will always seek the way through the path, however challenging it may be, however the situations may or may not be conducive. That is why the quality of mumukshatvam is spoken of as a prerequisite for Brahma Jignasa, or the quest for Brahman. As Adi Shankara would put it, Manushyatvam, Mumukshatvam, Mahapurusha Samshayaha. These three are very profound blessings and special blessings that are very rare to come by. To have a human birth is a special blessing. Then to have mumukshatvam, or the desire for freedom, is a added blessing. And to have the right kind of company of Mahapurushas, which means a conducive environment where this mumukshatvam can be furthered, is the third blessing, or the third-fold blessing. But even then, what is most important is that yearning, that sanskara of being a seeker, that is the greatest of all qualities that a yoga bhrashta carries forward to the next birth. Right? So that is the common thing in whatever Krishna is saying. He carries forward that nature of being a spiritual person or a spiritual seeker. I know I don't have enough knowledge to speak on what I'm going to speak. Especially, I will definitely don't have the authority to speak of it as saying that this is the last word. But what I'm saying is going to be based on some conversations that Swami students have had with Swami, and some of the things that Swami has said even in some of his discourses. Much of the favorable things that we speak of in life, be it affluence, be it name, fame and popularity, being born with talents, maybe even physical beauty, these are all benefits of some form of good karma, right? When I'm born with an extraordinary talent, what do I say? I say I'm lucky to be born this way. And we've discussed this even before, I think in the second chapter. This luck, which we call adrishtam in most of the Indian languages, is truly speaking adrishta phala, the unseen benefit of our past good actions, right? So this good karma or good prarabdha is like a fixed deposit that has kind of matured now, and now the question is, what will I use this money for? Now, what does that depend on, how I use this money? It depends on what I fancy. If I have the desire to build a house, I will encash that FD and build a house with that money. Or if I fancy buying a car, I will use it for that. Or if I had thought that one day when I have a lot of money, I should be able to donate to this orphanage, or I should be able to support this cause, then I will do that, right? So the way I spend the accumulated money will depend on my inclinations and desires, or what I think is the right way of using that money. In the same manner, the yoga bhrashta is a punya kritatma, one who has done a lot of good deeds or meritorious actions. And these good deeds are like that FD that I spoke about, a fixed deposit. Now, how will he or she spend that punya? That is based on one's inclinations, isn't it? So one of those inclinations is the spiritual tendencies or sanskaras. But somewhere there is also some misunderstanding that, oh, if I had been wealthy, along with being spiritual, I could have done a lot of charity. I've heard this from a lot of people. If I had more money, I would have done more good, right? So somewhere in the mind, we think that me not having money is stopping me from being a good person or earning more merit, right? Or there are some people who have said, oh, I wish I was more talented. Then I would have offered my talent to God and I would have been a more spiritual person. Or life would have been better if I had born in such and such a family where everybody was Swami's devotees, right? So these are all ideas that we have that this is the right way forward. So all these tendencies will come into play when we are talking about making use of past punyas, right? But among all of this, the most important is what we are speaking of as spiritual sanskaras or spiritual cravings. Here in the shloka, Krishna specifically mentions that. He says, Tatra, meaning there in that particular birth, the two options that Krishna spoke about, Tatra, there, Paurvadehikam, what existed or what was obtained in the previous body, Tam Buddhi Samyogam, that union with knowledge or that knowledge that was acquired, Paurvadehikam Tam Buddhi Samyogam, that union with knowledge that was acquired in the previous body, Labhate, he obtains it, or to be more specific, he or she re-obtains it or regains it, Buddhi Samyogam, that Buddhi Samyogam or that knowledge that was already gained, now it is regained from the previous life. Yatate cha tato bhuyaha samsiddhau kurunandana. Ho Arjuna, yatate cha, and he further strives, tato bhuyaha samsiddhau, for more perfection to be attained in that path. Krishna is not only stating that the yoga bhrashta will have benefits in the afterlife and in the next birth in terms of the conditions that one is born into, but is also stating very clearly that he or she will start off from where one has left off and then move further in that same path. For a spiritual person, if you go and say, through all your spiritual efforts, you're going to be born into a very rich family, you're going to be born into a very comfortable household, I don't think that person will be very delighted with that, right? This assurance that Krishna is giving is far more critical and more assuring for a spiritual person, that you will carry further from where you left off the previous time. That the progress in this birth is not lost in the next birth. I don't have to start off from the scratch in the next birth. Yes, I'll be born a child, I'll be born ignorant and I'll be dirtying my diapers, but when it comes to the quest of spirituality, I will not have to start right from the beginning. I will start from where I left off in the previous birth. Right? But the progress will not be lost. Unless and until in the birth I lose my way. Right? That is always there, and that is going to be addressed in the next verse, I think. But unless and until I do something really stupid, I am most likely to continue from where I left off in my previous birth. Tam buddhi samyogam labate. One gets to reconnect with that same intelligence that was gained in the past. And one final point, in this verse, possibly that is why Krishna refers to Arjuna as Kurunandana, because he is referring to his birth in the Kuru dynasty. It is not an ordinary family, right? The Kuru kingdom, it perfectly fits the description of Suchinam Shrimatam Gehe, a household that is prosperous and noble. It's definitely a noble clan. It is also, in a sense, Dhimatam Kulaha, a race where many wise people were born. The great Bhishma was born in this race. Shantanu was a great king, and there are many, many great kings in this lineage. And Arjuna and Yudhishthira are all born in that Kuru dynasty, right? So Krishna is probably hinting to Arjuna that look at yourself. You are also born in such a family that has what has made you today a seeker. Now it has given you this opportunity to stand in front of me and raise these questions and to be enlightened with the Gita, right? So probably this is a hint from Krishna that look at the benefit that you've got. This is what happens for a yoga bhrashta. So these three verses that we went through are very, very important because it gives a slight insight into the happenings of how one is born into a family, right? Of course, it is far more complicated than can be explained. It's far more complicated than it can be explained in a few minutes. But definitely you can see this. And it clears a lot of misconceptions that we might have about being wealthy, misconceptions that we might have about being talented, right? It clearly means that how you choose to use your accumulated good karmas. And that is one of the reasons why it is very important to have the right kind of thoughts even as we go through this life. Kind of, as Swami would say, be clear and the rest will follow. The whole attempt in this life is to have a clear vision, to have a clear perspective of what is worth going after, right? So that is one thing that Krishna says in this particular verse. I think we'll have enough time to go to the next shloka. We might not have time enough to go through it in as much detail, but nevertheless we'll listen to it. We'll have a brief discussion about that, and if there's anything more, I'll start with that next week. So this is the 44th verse of the 6th chapter.
पूर्वाभ्यासेन तेनैव ह्रियते
ह्यवशोऽपि सः जिज्ञासुरपि योगस्य शब्दब्रह्मति वर्तते.
For by that very past practice, he is carried forward even in spite of himself. Even a seeker of yoga transcends the result of the performance of Vedic rituals. In the previous shloka, Krishna said that seeking will rise again in the individual, even though he is born in a different body. Now we all know the problem with the world. There are many, many pitfalls. There are pitfalls in every stage, in every step, at every age. On top of that, Krishna is saying that, there are chances that you will be born in a rich family. Yes, money comes with its advantage, but money also comes with its temptations and dangers. You become a target for many evils. You become a target for many bad habits. So even if I am a person who had taken to the path of yoga, and in the next birth, I get all these benefits that Krishna is speaking about, is it good enough? What if I get more distracted? What if the reasons because of which I slipped in the first place in the previous birth becomes my nemesis even in this birth? Krishna puts to rest all those fears in this shloka. He says, Tena purva abhyasena eva. Verily by this previous practice, avashaha api, even helplessly, hriyate saha, he is carried forward. Earlier, Krishna had spoken about tendencies, and he had said these tendencies form one's prakriti or one's nature, and one is compelled to act by this prakriti. Even if I do not want to act in a certain manner, I find myself acting in that manner because this prakriti is pushing me to act. The same holds true for good nature too, good prakriti, which we refer to as sanskaras. Just like how vasanas can drag us involuntarily, Krishna says even samskaras or good tendencies can drag you. To become a seeker of truth, it calls for a lot of effort, right? One needs to go through the ups and downs of life. One needs to understand that it's not worth going after this world. One must have done a lot of sadhana. One must have practiced yoga. But in this birth, that sanskara makes him seek almost involuntarily. Even if he doesn't want, that tendency of being a spiritual seeker seems to manifest itself. Meaning, all spiritual gains are for the keeping. Don't worry, you will not lose whatever you have gained in the spiritual path. Krishna makes a statement in the next line of the shloka where he speaks about how the follower of yoga goes beyond rituals, and that is up for a lot of misunderstanding. People interpret it in the manner that Krishna is speaking about how having been a yoga brashta, having been born in a good family like this and regaining your attitude of being a seeker, you become a sannyasi, right? That's one of the interpretations that is often given. But we'll speak about that, probably we'll take it up in the next episode where we can see that is not the case. But the most important point that we should leave with in this shloka that Krishna is saying is Tena purva abhyasena eva avashaha api hriyate saha. This past abhyasas, the past effort that we have put in to focus our mind on the spiritual journey, those have now become our tendencies, right? Just like how a bad person or a person with bad habits, those vasanas seem to be propping up in the next life. For a spiritual person, for a yoga bhrashta, this yogic nature or this seeking nature becomes so compelling that it avashaha api, even helplessly, hriyate saha, it drags him along onto the spiritual path. So it says, Krishna says very, very clearly, You might earn a lot of money, but you will have to leave it behind when you die. You might have a lot of talent. You might have excelled as a singer. You might have excelled as a musician or a dancer or a cricketer. But when you die, you have to let it go. But this spiritual journey, whatever you have gained on the spiritual quest, nobody can take it away from you. It will become your nature. In the next birth, you will start off from where you have left, right? So it's a enormous assurance that Krishna is giving. There is no loss, right? In the present times, whenever we are investing, especially when you're doing an insurance, we're always thinking that even if I don't have a situation where I have to encash this insurance, is there any return? Is there any tax benefit, right? We are looking at minimizing our risks and maximizing our gains. The spiritual path is one such, where, yes, it is a very difficult path, as we have spoken about. It's a very challenging path. It's a path that is very adventurous, but at the same time, there is no loss in this path. Nothing is lost. All you do is only benefit, and you also get to carry forward your gains from one birth to the other. So we'll conclude with that. Thank you, dear listeners, for joining me. We will continue with this discussion because Krishna is not done with his answer. He's going to say a further few more things that we can discuss about, that we'll take it up in the next episode of the Gita series. I most humbly offer this effort at Swami's lotus feet, and I thank you all for your patient listening. Till I meet you all next week, take care. Jai Sai Ram.
Om Jai Jagadish Hare Swami Sathya Sai Hare Bhakta Jana Samrakshak Bhakta Jana Samrakshak Bhakti Maheshwara Om Jai Jagadish Hare Shashi Bhagana Shri Kara Sarva Pranapade Swami Sarva Pranapade Ashrita Kalpaladika Ashrita Kalpaladika Bhagavad Bhagava Om Jai Jagadish Hare Pita Guru Devam Mariyantayunive Swami Mariyantayunive Nana Brahma Jagannatha Nana Brahma Jagannatha Nagendra Shayana Om Jai Jagadish Hare Sai Mahadeva Sathya Sai Mahadeva Mangala Arati Anduko Mangala Arati Anduko Mandara Giridhari Om Jai Jagadish Hare Narayana Narayana Om Sathya Narayana 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 Om Sathya Narayana Narayana Sathya Narayana Narayana Om Jai Satgurudeva Narayana Narayana Om Sathya Narayana 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 Om Sathya Narayana Narayana Sathya Narayana Narayana Om Jai Satgurudeva Narayana Narayana Om Sathya Narayana 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 Om Sathya Narayana Narayana Sathya Narayana Narayana Om Jai Satgurudeva Shanti 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 Samasta Loka Sukhino
लोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
जय बोलो भगवान श्री सत्य साई बाबा जी की जय।
ॐ साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वप्रचोदयात्। 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 ॐ